Hi everyone, welcome back. So today we are going to be wrapping up a discussion that we had a little while back on the effects of human behavior and effective communication on the learning process. Uh, Before this video, we talked about, well, I guess the part one of this discussion or topic was what exactly are the elements of human behavior? How do we define it? Then we talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then wrapped that up with some of the common defense mechanisms that students uh, have during their flight training. So today, we're going to wrap up or do a kind of a part two of that topic by talking more about learning emotional reactions. So, other than a lot of them, just kind of more negative, some of the negative reactions that students have, as well as stress and kind of what's a normal reaction to stress versus some abnormal reactions. We'll discuss what exactly is effective communication and what are some of the barriers to effective communication. And then lastly, we will talk about teaching the adult learner. So, yeah, without further ado, we're going to dive right in. So, we're going to just start by talking about some of those learner emotional reactions. Um, some of those reactions are anxiety, impatience, worry, or lack of interest, physical discomfort, apathy due to inadequate instruction, and then stress, which we'll kind of break down further. So anxiety is exactly what it sounds like. I'm sure we all are familiar with feelings of anxiety, or at least know what it is. Um, so yeah, that's it's a feeling of nervousness or unease about something that is about to happen. So a source of anxiety for a lot of beginning students is doing stalls. Um, so in order to help the student cope with that and get through and kind of help them manage that anxiety a little bit is to just help, remind them that they'll be safe. That's what, I'm here for as the instructor, but also um, just kind of remind them of their love for flying and just remind them why they're doing this. And then usually that does the trick. Um, I know personally for me, I was a little stressed about about doing my spin training. I was worried about getting sick actually, and I had a very good instructor who reassured me and helped me through the lesson, and I got my spin endorsement. So the next one is impatience. So that's just trying to rush. A big thing, a big milestone in flight training early on is that first solo. Everyone talks about it. Everyone wants to get it, get to the solo and as quick as possible. And because of that, sometimes they might neglect some of the work that needs to be done ahead of time, whether that's you know studying on the ground or some of the work that's needed to do in the airplane prior to that first solo. Um, so the best way to combat that as the instructor is just it's a step by step approach, reminding the student, hey, we got to do X, Y, and Z before we get to the solo, or before you learn how to land, we need to learn how to enter a traffic pattern, learn the legs of the pattern, learn our airspeeds, that sort of thing. So that's impatience. The next one is worry or lack of interest. Um, so just kind of simply, if the learner's overly worried about something, they're just not going to learn. They're not going to retain information. They're not going to listen well. Um, so yeah. The next one is physical discomfort. And again, it's a pretty straightforward one. That's your illness, fatigue, dehydration. Um, Basically, if you're physically uncomfortable with something, again, you're going to shut down and um, not want to be up to the task at hand. So, as the flight instructor, to help combat that, a good way is to remind the student how to be prepared for a lesson. Yes, read your stuff, study up, but mainly go to the bathroom before you go out. Make sure you're hydrated. Have a good meal. Make sure you've had a good night's sleep if it's a morning flight. Just stuff like that. Um, the next one is apathy due to inadequate instruction. So that is, that's me. If I'm doing a bad job, if I seem disinterested, or rushed, or if I'm not prepared for the lesson, the student's going to figure that out pretty quickly, and they're going to start becoming apathetic towards the whole process. Um, I guess honestly, my recommendation for that is, if you can, as a student, find a different instructor. Um, at the end of the day, it's, flight instruction, this is a big deal, or being a flight student is a big deal. And one of the best ways, I think, early on to take ownership of that training, is to really make sure that you gel well with your instructor, but also just make sure that, watch for your instructor and just make sure that they are prepared. Like I said, if I'm not prepared, if I don't seem interested in the student, interested in what they're doing, the student's not going to learn. So, moving on, we will talk about stress, and that's kind of more of the two-parter here. So stress, everybody feels stress at some point, and it's okay. There's completely normal. Normal reactions to stress are usually, our responses are rapid and quick, and within the extent or the limitations of our training. So example of that in the plane again, we're going out and we're learning how to do or practicing emergency procedures, like an engine fire or something. So if, the first couple times we're flying, I'm with the student, I pull the power and say, hey, you got an engine fired. Like, what are we going to do? The student might, I mean, well, not might, they're going to just start doing stuff. Whether that's their flow, maybe they'll whip a checklist out first. Like, they're going to do something. Um, and if they haven't practiced this enough, um, it'll show in what their reactions are initially. And that's okay. But what I need to do then is to make sure, I teach them properly, but also, um, you know, after they've kind of learned the correct process, is to practice with them, um, just so they can react and resolve the issue correctly, but also so that they can manage their own stress in that situation. Because even in a simulated environment, um, at least for me, I would get pretty stressed pretty quickly, to practicing emergency procedures or something. Immediately I'm like, okay, just start doing my flow. Do this, this, that. Just start, and just immediately it's just rapid response to meet the problem. Um, so kind of the opposite side of that are our abnormal reactions to stress. So I've got a little graphic here. And this highlighted section here this is an acronym for me. There's no, acronyms are just memory aids, so I can be able to discuss these off the top of my head if I need to. So if you think of a better acronym, go for it. Again, it's just to help me. So that first P, so the abnormal reactions to stress, pre-sim. The P is painstaking self-control. So that's your death grip on the yoke. That's pretty much what it is. You're getting gusts of wind. It's gusty on final. Um, Early students might just initially want to just put a death grip on the yoke. The R is rapid change in emotion. So that's just your emotional roller coaster. And that's pretty self-explanatory, I think. One minute you're happy about something, the next you're sad, the next you're feeling euphoric, the next you're feeling super stressed about something. But it's all rapid. It's all happening very quickly. E is extreme over cooperation. So think of your check ride. When you go through a check ride, at least for me, I was very much like, the DP says to do something, just do it right away. Don't even think about it. Just do it. How that manifests in everyday flying. Maybe you're flying with a new instructor that you haven't flown with, or maybe not. Maybe you're just flying with me, and you just start off. You give me a yes sir sandwich. Hey, add 100 RPM of power right now. Yes sir. Maybe retract your flaps right now. Yes sir. Just this, not even giving your brain the opportunity to evaluate the situation or the request. You're just immediately doing it to satisfy whatever need you think whatever I'm asking. The S is severe anger, usually directed towards the instructor, and that could be something like flight ops switching airplanes, which happens often. Usually, you go to, it happens, or more than you think. An airplane can get squawked because something is wrong with it, and that's your airplane, or you've pre-flighted it and then you find out something's wrong with it, and then you have to go pre-flight a new airplane, and then it delays your time, and then you're gonna have less time in the air for the lesson. I've had that happen, and it's gonna happen in your training, and I'm sure I've done this because everyone has. They've gotten angry and they start complaining about their instructor. It's severe anger directed towards the instructor, and usually for things that necessarily may or may not be the instructor's fault or even your fault as the student. The I is inappropriate laughter and singing, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It's just laughing inappropriately at times, or singing when you're stressed. For example of this for me is when early on when I was flying at night, it feels windy, and I was getting kind of tossed around, especially on final. I would find myself like, no, oh, add a little power, just take a little less out, just kind of singing my steps, if you will, as I'm flying the plane down the runway. So yeah, inappropriate laughing and singing. And lastly, the M is marked changes in moods, and that is different moods for different lessons. So I get to learn landings today. I'm really excited. I've been waiting for this. Yeah, let's go do landings. Yeah, I'm really excited for this. Versus the next day, hey, today let's go out and do some ground reference. It's you need to brush up on it. Oh, fine, whatever we can do. We'll do our S turns across the road. I guess we've done them a million times. Fine, whatever. Just being, just two very different moods for the different lessons. So those are the abnormal reactions to stress. So as the flight instructor, what can I do if I see some of these reactions or they seem to be serious? Well, one thing is I could just take a step back for a second, because I might think that the student is reacting abnormally when they're not. So that, I would just probably consult another flight instructor and ask them, hey, these are some things that I've noticed in the student. These are the types of things we've been doing with the plane and our lessons. Like, what do you think? Or even maybe have the student fly with another instructor, just so when the lesson is over, the student has gone, you and that other instructor again can kind of confer with each other and just see kind of what's going on, and then game plan for how to approach this the next time the student comes in. So yeah. So now that we've kind of discussed these reactions to stress and some of the emotions that the learner may feel, let's go down and start discussing communication. So elements of communication, SSR, it's pretty straightforward. We've got the source, the symbol, and the receiver. So the source of communication is, it's going to start with me as a flight instructor. So yeah, I mean, you could also say that it is the student, and it is to a degree, thinking about making that go, no-go decision. For example, at some point, you're going to shift that responsibility more towards the student. Granted, you do oversee this as the instructor, but you're kind of relying on the student a little bit more to really think about, that decision, whether or not. So hopefully they reach out to you. But again, at the end of the day, it is me, the instructor. I am the source of communication. The symbol are the words or the gestures that we use when we're talking with the student, or even the props we might use when we're doing ground lessons, like the little miniature airplane or the giant E6B. Then we've got the receiver, and the receiver is the student and the learner and the instructor. Again, kind of going back to the source here a little bit, the student can also be the source, but also simultaneously I am the main source. And it's just like the receiver. The student um, the student is the primary receiver, but sometimes that is also me. Whether or not maybe it's about scheduling for the student, or I actually even just doing a ground lesson and assessing where they're at. They're the ones providing me the information as I evaluate them on their knowledge. So those are elements of communication. So these are kind of the barriers to um, effective communication. We've got COIL. So C, we've got confusion between the symbol and the symbolized object. So that's the student not understanding what I mean. So the example here is the yoke. Um, inside the airplane, you've got you've got the yoke. Think of it as it's what you use to control the ailerons, as well as control the pitch. That's called the yoke. Not everyone knows that right away. So best way to kind of relate it to someone's experience, well, you drive a car, right? Think of it as the steering wheel. Eventually you will switch verbiage so you do understand that it's called the yoke. But for right now, think of it as the steering wheel. So that's confusion between the symbol and symbolized object. O is overuses or abstractions. So it's me not being specific. Add a little bit of power. Well, if you say add a little bit of power to a student, they're gonna take they're gonna jam the power knob all the way into the firewall if they can. So instead, say add 200 RPM, or specify a number. Let take out power down to 1500 RPM, something like that. You want to be specific. I is interference. So yes, you're flying, you're flying, and you have a headset battery go out. Well, what that might look like is you might suddenly get a lot. Your headset might get a lot noisier, or the headset might go out, which means suddenly you cannot hear what ATC might be saying if you're at a towered airport. Or if not, you're not going to hear what other planes are doing. You're not going to hear what I'm saying very well as I'm talking to you and instructing you as we fly. So yeah, that headset battery going out interferes with effective communication. And the last one is the L, the lack of common experience. So the example that I have here is saying like aneroid wafer. Well, what does the word aneroid mean? Aneroid, it's another way of saying, barometer, but people don't know that right away. So maybe it makes you conscious of some of the language that you use when discussing things, and just trying to relate stuff to the student. Just yesterday I made a video on icing, for example, and I was talking about clear ice and what it might look like. And I live in Minnesota. A lot of people, enjoy hockey here. So the best way to relate to others' experience, I guess, in the moment, I talked about what the ice rink looks like after a Zamboni has driven over it. So just something to connect, to bridge a gap, to take our lack of common experience and finding something we do have in common and talking about things in that way to help the learner understand better. So those are the barriers to effective communication. So, on the flip side of that, what are some skills that we can use to develop our communication skills to make us better? So we go down, we got liquor. So L here is listening. So that's hearing with comprehension. That's being interested in what the student is saying, even if you've heard it 1,000 times. As you go through flight training, as you start talking to students on a regular basis, you're gonna talk about a lot of the same subjects often and often. But just remember, regardless of that, just make sure you're hearing the student and comprehending what they're saying. The next one is the I, so that's instructional communication. So as I gain experience, that is going to further improve my ability to be able to help students and answer their questions. So just it comes with experience. The cue here is questioning. So asking the students questions about the topic that about a topic to gauge their understanding. So instead of saying, or yeah, say we're talking about weather or something, and the student has a kind of a baseline understanding of some of the weather minimums in Class D airspace. Say we're working out of Crystal. The student might really understand the weather minimums specific to that airspace, but then to further kind of get them to think outside the box a little bit, maybe ask them about weather at Buffalo or somewhere that isn't in Class D airspace. Maybe ask them about a Charlie. Maybe ask them about Alpha airspace. So just you're trying to understand just how much they know about a topic. So you're asking questions. The I is instructional enhancement. I don't know why I said just enhance. It's instructional enhancement. And what that is, me as an instructor, I'm always learning. It's Jason Shepard has the great quote of, a good pilot is always learning. Same holds true with the instructor, me. The more I learn, the more it's going to be able to help me teach the student and better, just shepherd them along through their training. And lastly, the R is role playing. So this comes up a lot in training. So this is, pretending to be ATC on my end. So we're flying IF, or we're doing a practice flight. I got a student under the hood. Me taking on the role of ATC and the student responding to my requests as ATC. That's a good way to role play. Another way is in CFI training. You have your instructor that's sitting in the left seat. They're pretending to be the student, and you're taking on the role of the instructor. So that's another example of that. So yeah, those are some ways we can develop our communication skills to make them better. So lastly, we will discuss just briefly some of the characteristics of the adult learner. Mainly because, especially in flight training, you're going to get a plethora of ages. And there are a lot of, career 2.0 people like me who are adults. There's a lot of people older than me as well. But the point is, the adult learner has some specific characteristics that may differ from, a child or someone who's younger, like a teenager or something. So the first kind of thing to think about is, for the adult learner, usually what they're learning is a means to an end. They have a use for the knowledge. So in this case, a lot of times we're seeing people, they want to go to the airlines. So they need all of this knowledge to build off of it to move on to the next rating, in order to, again, ultimately someday make it to that airline gig where all of this knowledge that they learn is going to come into play at some degree or in some degree. Also, adult learners will seek out learning experiences, usually as a way to cope with some sort of change in their life, whether that's, say, they got a new job, or they just got married. Maybe they had a kid, just something like that. The next one is they want to be autonomous. They want to have more control, more self-direction over their training. So yeah, that's, kind of backing off a little bit and allowing them the space to be able to take more ownership and control over the training. The next one is they're usually going to be drawing from a foundation of life experience. The older the person is, the more life experience they have. So they're typically going to be using that life experience to incorporate that. They're going to incorporate their life experiences into their flight training in order to better learn. The next one is they're very goal oriented, which is great. I think everyone should be goal oriented. But I mean, what I'm saying is, it's they're more focused on the tasks at hand. They know they're focused on the process. They're focused on the steps they need to take in order to get to a specific goal. They're more they need to be shown respect. And that, I mean, that's honestly goes for everyone, but that's pretty self-explanatory. They need to be shown need to be shown respect. Me as the instructor should respect your student. Simple as that. Their need for, I guess, their need to maintain their self-esteem or grow their self-esteem, or yeah, basically their need to grow their sense of self-esteem is usually a strong secondary motivator to their primary motivation, whatever that may be for them to be in flight training. So, yeah. Lastly, is they want to solve problems and apply the knowledge that they learn almost immediately. They just want to use it right away, which kind of goes back to the first one, a means to an end almost. They have a specific use for this knowledge. So yeah, what can I do as an instructor to kind of help and engage well with the adult learner? Clarify and articulate expectations from the get-go and very clearly. And again, that it's not just the adult learner. This transcends the adult. If you have, a high school student, it's the same thing. Effectively communicate. I should say that. I should say clearly articulate what you expect from them and what some of the expectations should be in flight training. Provide an organized training syllabus, which is important. So that way, again, the adult learner, goal oriented, they can take a look at the syllabus. They can see, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, Z in these days in order to get to this by this point. So, yeah. And lastly, just being cognizant of the learner's desire for autonomy and control and pace. It's, it's in the ball will be in their court more. So just be mindful of that and respect that. So those are some of the characteristics of the adult learner. So kind of just looking down at my notes here again, I'm pretty sure I wrapped everything up. I did. Yeah. So today we just, like I said at the start of the video, this is the end of our, discussion on the effects of human behavior and communication on the learning process. It was very quick. I can link the first video on this below, but I'll also link the chapter in the Aviation Instructor's Handbook as well if you really want to get in the weeds on this stuff. But yeah, no, that is effects of human behavior and communication on learning process. We talked about learner emotions. We talked about stress, effective communication, how to improve our communication skills, some of the barriers to communication, and then how what the characteristics are of the adult learner. So I hope you learned something, and as always, I love any comments that you might want to give. I'm doing this so I can get better at this. If I miss something, let me know. I can either do a follow-up video or provide another source or something. But yeah, I hope you, like I said, I hope you all learned something, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.